For RCR Wireless News, I'm Sean Kinney, and I'm speaking today with Stefan Litjens, who is with the MulteFire Alliance. And we're going to learn a little bit about the work that the Alliance does and what MulteFire is and what its role in the telecom ecosystem could be. So Stefan, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. And as we get started, I was hoping you could just give us a high-level overview of MulteFire, what it is as a technology, and then the MulteFire Alliance and the work that the group does.
Yeah, absolutely. So MulteFire is a LTE-based technology existing in the unlicensed band. And I think, you have heard probably quite a lot about LTE and unlicensed. So we have LTE-U, we have LAA, but this technology is a little bit different. So with the other technologies, you still need an anchor band to make it work. So that's basically, using only the downlink and unlicensed, and everything else is still connected to an anchor in licensed. So what we did with MulteFire is that we said, okay, we want to enable different type of use cases. So can we disconnect the LTE in unlicensed entirely from the licensed band? So we moved both uplink and downlink in the unlicensed. We moved the control channels, the signaling channels. So everything that you need to build a standalone LTE network in the unlicensed band. And I think that's kind of the key difference between what you see today and if you then look at what does it bring you, it brings you the LTE functions like mobility, quality of service, better coverage than other technologies that are there in the unlicensed band.
Okay, so when you remove the need for an anchor tenant deployed in licensed spectrum, you obviously change a lot of the cost dynamics around a deployment. So who is MulteFire for? Is this for carriers? Is it for non-carrier service providers? Is it enterprises? What's the niche that it fills there?
So MulteFire can actually apply to several use cases. So if we start from the operator side, so the first use case is that it's simply indoor deployments, small campus areas. Because for an operator, when you put in a small cell, you always still need to take a co-channel interference into account. And of course, if an operator wants to deploy without too much thinking additional hotspot areas, you can use MulteFire because it's entirely disconnected from any kind of co-channel issues and so on. So for them, it's a very easy way to deploy additional capacity in their network, so they can augment. And secondly, what they could also do, and this is also something which, for example, a neutral host can do or a shopping mall, is that MulteFire is a global band. If we put it in 5 gig, we may put in another band. So it's also a network into which anybody can roam. So if you set up a MulteFire network in a stadium instead of separate distributed antenna systems, which is the case today, of course, it's a lot easier. So it's a lot lower cost, and you can have multiple business models around such neutral host network. And then if we touch on the enterprises, also for them, there are good opportunities. So they could choose to either build an entirely private LTE network. They could choose to build a LTE network for themselves, but still roam into an operator network once they leave the premises. And so also there, we see use cases which might not have been possibly earlier by giving people a technology which is more easy to deploy, either by an operator or themselves, with higher quality attributes than what is available now.
Okay, and a lot of the discussion around LTE-U is fair existence with other signals that are deployed in these unlicensed bands, primarily Wi-Fi. So how does MulteFire fit into that dynamic?
We of course adhere to the same regulations. So fair sharing is a basic building block of MulteFire. So it starts from the spectrum regulations where you adhere to power, the way you use the bandwidth, the emission levels, and then of course for depending on the market, we will have additional specific features like listen before talk, which are a little bit different, for example, in US, Europe, and Japan. But we are implementing all of those, and of course there was a strong how shall we say, commonality between these kind of LTE-U, LAA type of technologies and MulteFire. So there's a lot of the stuff which is already developed there that we can basically take immediately into MulteFire.
Okay, so interference with Wi-Fi is not an issue then.
No, and we have demonstrated that. So on Mobile World Congress, I don't know, did you have the time to visit us or Ericsson or Qualcomm booth? We actually showed how it works when you have both Wi-Fi and MulteFire active in the same spectrum. And well, there you could see that we take any other technology in a license in a fair way into account.
If I recall that demo correctly, isn't there a potential benefit to Wi-Fi?
In what sense?
In once MulteFire is also deployed, is it possible to see a better performance from the Wi-Fi?
Oh, yeah, that's one of the interesting things we observed, that Wi-Fi plus Wi-Fi, is tougher for them among each other than Wi-Fi plus MulteFire. So this is one of the interesting phenomena we have seen, that MulteFire is more gentle to Wi-Fi than a neighboring Wi-Fi cell is to the next one. So
was that a bit unexpected?
Well, let's say we didn't plan for it. If you ask my engineers, they will probably tell me, of course, because of XYZ feature, and so on. But yeah, at least I didn't ask for it. I saw it happen, and I thought, okay, yeah, it's better to be better than
And so tell me about the MulteFire Alliance. I know you work as the VP of Innovation Steering at Nokia, but also serve on the board of the MulteFire Alliance. So what's a little bit of background on the group? What's the objective?
If we go back a little bit in history, how they started, I think, both Qualcomm and my company, Nokia, we were working internally on this topic, and at some point we realized that actually, we're doing the same things here, and we also realized that for this type of technology to take hold, the only thing you can do is try to foster an ecosystem. And I think a good starting point to foster an ecosystem is to try to collect other companies that could benefit from the technology into an alliance which is built on the basis of an even playing field with very open IPR rules, but also some structure, because in the end, everybody needs to build the technology in the same way. You need to have interoperability. And so on. So we decided to set up the alliance. In the end, we ended up with a group of 4 parties to really lift it off. So Qualcomm, Nokia, Ericsson, and Intel. And in the meantime, it's slowly growing. And the interesting thing is, if you look to the members of MulteFire, you can also see a reflection of the use cases that it can enable. So we see, for example, Ruckus is on board. We see which is coming from the Wi-Fi enterprise end. We see that Spider Cloud is there with their indoor perspective. We see companies like Atonet, which look very much into what can you do with wireless in mining, in this type of oil platforms, specialized enterprise areas. So you see it attracts a lot of people who see possibilities to do something with this technology that they couldn't do before.
And I think just this week, the MulteFire Alliance announced the addition of 3 new member companies, SoftBank, Sercom, and Rohde & Schwarz from Test and Measurement, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, good diversity in there, from the testing to leading operator. And, this comes again also a little bit back again to the use cases, what you asked in the beginning, for who's MulteFire? Well, MulteFire is for those people that that have innovation in their genes, and that like others, aspire to bring wireless connectivity to places it hasn't been yet.
So you mentioned the demonstrations that we saw during Mobile World Congress. That was 7 weeks ago, I guess. So give me an idea of where MulteFire is in its sort of evolution towards commercialization.
So we are going to complete release 1 of MulteFire around the end of the first quarter, and then we will be looking at commercial trials during first quarter 17, followed by real products. Of course, each company has their own roadmap, but and they would need to define it in more detail themselves. But from our perspective, in my Nokia role, that's the timeline that we are looking at.
Okay, so it's potential that I could be using this in some setting by 2018.
I hope in 2017. I mean, why not? And and this is the cool stuff, right? So you could build your own LTE network. So Sean's LTE network, and you can hook up your neighbors, all your gear in your house, and so on, and you will have a reasonable coverage area that everything is actually working. Yeah, absolutely. So,
how would you expect the early commercialization of this to take shape? Will it be in really dense sort of indoor setting, or will it be for outdoor campuses?
I think probably we are thinking the first trials to look at probably Industry 4.0 application already this year, where we would do it in a campus, indoor area, because of these kind of higher quality attributes, it enables some new stuff there. I definitely see a large indoor market for it. I mean, that's the strength of MulteFire. But the outdoor performance is quite decent. So I think campus areas, we will see extensions into the outer space.
Yeah, so with Industry 4.0 and this plan to move towards smart manufacturing, can you expound a little bit about the role MulteFire could play in that indoor type IoT setting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that MulteFire brings is this kind of what I said earlier, mission critical quality, and also it's interesting. We were talking to some parties who were doing welding and so on. There's always quite a higher amount of interference, even though there's not necessarily interference coming from telco system, but from the industry processes. So they're always a bit more careful in hooking up their critical machinery and so on into wireless networks. And this is what we are now trialing and testing, is how can MulteFire behave in such environments, and it's very encouraging.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned MulteFire relative to distributed antenna systems in the stadium environment. I guess a lot of the conversation I'm currently hearing is geared around small cells as a DAS disruptor ultimate replacement. So when we add MulteFire into that, I guess the real benefit there is you create something that can act like a small cell, but also be neutral host.
Yeah, and I think the other key thing is that the deployment is a lot easier, right? What I said earlier. So on one side, the features like listen before talk, they are good for coexistence, but they also make it easier for nodes to coexist next to each other. You don't have the co-channel issues. And as you say, there is the neutral host capability that anybody in the stadium can roam into the same network. So there is good options. So it should take away some of the burden to deploy networks into stadiums and other dense areas like shopping malls and so on.
Are there any real obvious challenges to the strategy that we've just discussed about bringing this technology mainstream? Is there anything that concerns you about executing on that?
The biggest challenge is, of course, to keep the momentum going. So we have now good traction, but you can only keep traction going by hitting your milestones. So as I said, we need to complete the first release definition. So, all the participants can make their products and so on. So we have to keep moving. And I think this is also something we focus on. We have a weekly or bi-weekly discussions with the key members in the alliance to make sure things move forward. So we have also quite soon a Intel hosted convention around the standards development and these other type of events that we must hit each time to stick to the timeline and get the momentum at the level we have today.